I'm hearing Jurassic Park's pretty good though.
It's got like a 65%
Or Jurassic
on
World.
Rotten Tomatoes.
The new one?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's actually pretty terrible for not even like released in America yet. I've heard some of the reviews that I've seen. They have said it's a good movie. Although one of them that was particularly glowing about it, she thought Hereditary was stupid, and I loved Hereditary.
Hereditary is an amazing.
Let's talk about Hereditary.
Let's talk about
her Hereditary review. Bonus review.
One of my favorite horror movies I've ever seen.
Dude,
It's
it
up
was
there.
ridiculous. I mean, some of the complaints that I've heard about the movie, I get, but keep in mind, this was this director's first feature-length film. And one of my buddies, his name is Joel, he's a horror...
Hi, Joel.
Hi, Joel. I don't think he watches the channel.
No.
He is a horror aficionado, and he's a movie snob. And he was like, he thought it was unimpressive, he thought it was dumb, and which I really went to bat for this movie because I liked it that much. But he was talking about how there was a lot of elements in the movie that was just taken from better films. And I can see if you've seen all of these movies and you've been in love with them since you were a kid, kind of, then I could see how Hereditary wouldn't impress you. I am not a huge horror movie aficionado. So there's a lot of these movies that he's talking about that I haven't seen or heard of. So, but in any case, it was a well done and greatly directed film.
Yeah, absolutely. It has great acting in it. Toni Collette
Nailed it.
awesome.
She's always on the edge, but she never goes too far or brings it back too much. She's always...
She's perfect in
She
in
did
this
great.
Movie. All of them. Even Gabriel Byrne, who as the father, especially at the beginning of the film, I didn't think we were going to get much out of him.
Not Kaiser Soze.
Right. I didn't think we were going to get much out of him. I thought he was going to be kind of a throwaway character, but he actually became
good.
Pretty interesting. Yeah.
He had
There was a lot of emotional depth in his character.
There really was, and he underplays it.
Right.
Because he plays it as a man who's just like
Barely holding it together.
But he is holding it together.
Yeah.
He is holding it together, but just barely until there's a part where he starts breaking down. He just can't deal with it anymore. But a lot of the stuff in this movie, there's some supernatural elements to it, but feels like it could happen. It feels like people could be that sadistic enough to do this kind of stuff.
Right. The whole beginning, I'd say the 3/4 of the film are pretty realistic.
Yeah.
And until it kind of like goes off the rails.
The movie is so filled with tension, though. There was a point where you towards the end of the movie, you figure out what's going on more or less. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, I feel like the tension's letting up. But no, it's too late by that point. It really is too late. I really thought the tension would okay, I know what's happening now. But no, they as soon as you feel like that, they up the stakes and they really start getting into more horror aspects. And really, the movie is pretty graphic in a couple of parts. In 2 parts, it's graphic, but it's so effective and so just eerie.
The entire film is made up of very unsettling shots, even if it's not necessarily graphic. I know the parts that you're talking about, and yeah, they stick with you. But there are other scenes that are just kind of disturbing and they stick with you.
So there was a lot of
I'm getting goosebumps talking about it right now.
There was a lot of really psychological stuff, and it deals with some of the stuff that the interactions that they have with each other as family members are in some ways more horrific than if you want to take it to a realistic level, which it does. The way they interact with each other is as a family is more horrific than some of even the other imagery.
Right.
Some of the stuff that they say to each other is gut wrenching, and it's not like they're not necessarily cursing. I mean, they probably curse at each other some, but it's not even that. It's more of really deep stuff and really spiteful and hurtful stuff that they end up saying to each other, and that just didn't. It helped the tone of the film, but it didn't help me as an audience member.
There's not really a time during the film where you feel at ease.
Definitely.
Even in the quiet parts, you feel this knot in your stomach and this dread, and it constantly builds on that feeling. The film is constantly moving forward, even in the slower parts. It clocks in over 2 hours long, and some people said that it was
really. I didn't even notice.
Some people said that it was too long, but I think that it's great. In fact, the original cut was like 3 hours, and I'd like to see that.
I want to see the original cut, definitely. And it's somebody who understands horror movies. Probably my least favorite genre in horror is slasher films because they're not scary. They're just like they're just gore fests, and it's not very interesting, in my opinion. I will say I haven't like fully seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but the idea of making daylight scary again is something pretty interesting to me. But in this movie, I mean, he uses it's more about what you don't see, because it will linger on a character like you see what's so effective about the movie is you see a character's facial expression before you actually see what they're looking at. And it lingers on their facial expression, so you're like, what are they looking at? And it utilizes shadows so well. It's almost as, if you wake up and then you think you see something and then it's not really there, but you think it's there because you're like half asleep. He does a really good job at kind of capturing that idea. Barely just showing what's in the shadows.
Doesn't work well when you get home from the late showing of the movie.
No, man. And as someone who was afraid of the dark, like pretty bad as a kid, which I was, this movie was really effective horror for me.
Back to the family, to your point where you said that it's more horrifying at times than some of the graphic images. Well, yeah, because it's more real. It's something that could really happen. It's you're supposed to feel safest with your family, right? And when you have this type of environment and this type of family, there's no way that you can feel safe like this.
No, definitely. And even if there wasn't a horror aspect, it's an unsettling family situation. And there was let's talk about some of the parts in the trailers that look horror gimmicky. So there's a part in the trailer whenever he's in the son is in his class, and he looks over and he sees his reflection in one of the cabinets in the classroom, and he's smiling at himself and he's like waving at himself. There's some stuff that looks like really gimmicky as far as like what you would see in a horror film. But even those gimmicky things are really effective.
Yeah, by that point you're so far down the rabbit hole that you're sucked into it, and it's hard to get out of it. In fact, for several days after seeing it, it was like the top thing on my mind.
Well, and I think one of the reasons though is because I actually cared about the characters like a lot. So, is there anything non-spoilery you want to say?
Non-spoilery, no.